Hi, I'm Dr. Margriet Barnard, your host of the Birth and Baby Show, brought to you by Sister Lillian Center and Sensitive Midwifery. We empower moms, midwives, and birth workers to have the best birthing and parenting experience through natural, physiological, and intuitive care, resulting in birth and baby advice you can trust. This episode is sponsored by Zinplex. Give your little one's tummy and immune system gentle support with Zinplex Junior probiotic drops with zinc. Suitable from birth, these easy-to-use drops may help keep tiny tummies happy by supporting a healthy balance of good bacteria. Zinc is a nutrient that plays an important role in keeping growing bodies strong and healthy. For more information regarding dosages and directions, please visit www.zinplex.co.za. Ideal for everyday use, it's available online or at Dis-Chem, Clicks, RNL Pharmacy Group, and other leading pharmacies nationwide. Welcome, Wilma, Professor Wilma. I'm so glad that you could make time to be on the show today. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Margriet, and thank you for inviting me. I'm very excited to be here.
Yeah, I couldn't think of a better person since I've now been interacting with you this year to come on for Prematurity Awareness Month, which is November. But before we jump in the content, just tell us a little bit more about yourself and the work that you do.
Thank you, Margriet. I'm a professor in midwifery and nursing at the Northwest University, but I have a special interest in premature babies and neonatal ICU environment with a even more specific focus on the parents because it's such a daunting experience for them. They're in this turmoil and they need to survive with their babies and they need to cope with all these new things. So, yeah, prematurity is very close to my heart, and that's really the area in which I specialize.
Oh, amazing. So for November, we have the World Prematurity Awareness Day. And why do we need awareness for prematurity?
I think it's prematurity is like something that's being covered with a blanket. A lot of people don't talk about it, but actually there's so many people that's affected by it. So premature babies, 1 in 10 of babies are born premature, which means they are born before 37 weeks of gestation. And sometimes they're just a little premature and we think they're okay-ish. So if they're 34 weeks or 35 weeks, but they can also have huge challenges. And then especially the bond between mum and baby and a lot of that interaction and relationship that goes with that can be affected by the baby being born early or the baby being separated from the mother at birth, but also then after birth. But then we can also more define these babies into their birth weight. So we have low birth weight babies if they are less than 2,500 grams. Very low birth weight babies when they are less than 1,500 grams, and extremely low birth, or you may also have heard about microprem babies, and they're born below 1,000 grams. And depending on the birth weight, the babies can have different challenges, which we know are generally associated with that birth weight.
Yeah, sure. So 1 out of 10 babies, that is quite
Yes.
significant. And we should all then be very, very much aware that this could be a possibility for any woman that's
Absolutely.
pregnant. That is,
Yes, specifically in our country or in countries that's less resourced,
Mhm.
the lower the resource levels in the countries, the higher the prematurity rate, because prematurity can also be linked to antenatal care or lack thereof, and mother's nutritional status and her home environment, her stress levels, if it's a first preg or if it's a single pregnancy or multiple pregnancy. And then if we go into the higher economic environment, also infertility and infertility treatment plays a huge role in prematurity. So there's a lot of factors that plays a role, but there's a lot of babies that's been affected. And often they're not only affected for that short period after birth, but these can be challenges and conditions that can have a longer term developmental influence, or it can actually be a lifelong condition that has its start in prematurity. So yes, we need to know about it. We need to know how to prevent it. Need to know how to treat it when it occurs. And we also need to know what the challenges is, what's associated with it.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's do that then quickly. How can we prevent it? Is it,
So there's lots of research on trying to prevent prematurity, and it can be quite tricky because in 50% of premature births, we don't know why the baby arrives early. They just want to and they do. But then there's things that we can do, like mothers need to go for their antenatal checkups from very early in pregnancy and very frequently. So if mom have conditions like hypertension or a heart condition of any of those, then those can be treated. And if that's treated, then the baby can stay in the mom's womb for longer, which is of course what we want. Then nutritional status is very important. So pregnant moms need to eat right. They need to exercise. Exercise have also been linked to better outcomes in babies. And then, interesting enough, massage can also help to prevent prematurity, which I think is good for mums. I think it's good for couples as well. And it can be a back massage, it can be a foot massage, and it's probably linked to all the endorphins and the feeling good hormones and the lower of stress
yeah.
that's related to that. And then, of course, we shouldn't stress. We should have a much more relaxed kind of lifestyle, and our environment should be safe. No smoking, no drinking, no drug use. So it should be a healthy environment and preferably a planned pregnancy. So in the pregnancy level, I think those are the most important things that we can do to try and prevent pregnancy.
So if I listen to you, it sounds like if the mother's environment is not optimal anymore, then the baby, for quest of survival, just gets out there.
Yes, I think so, because then probably the baby would do better on the outside, although that comes with its own risks.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
if we look on that part, then first we need to look at the birth process. So often, and especially in a more medicalized environment, babies are taken out earlier. So either a cesarean section is done just before because the baby is going to be too big. That's one of the good reasons that's usually used. So we are scared that the baby will get stuck during the birth process. And on a midwifery level, that's usually not true. And then also, if you're in a medicalized environment, hospital, gynecologist, then they tend to want to plan when this baby is coming. So often the doctors will take out the baby a bit earlier. And mums also put a lot of pressure on the system and saying, I feel uncomfortable, just take the baby out. And then the thought is, oh, it's just a week or two too early. But if the baby is not in the womb, in utero for that week or two, where they get all the protection and the nutrition and the safety and the environment that they need, then they need to get it somewhere else, and that's usually in the neonatal ICU. So there's a lot of stress and trauma that goes with that. So we don't want to take babies out even 1 week early, because there's a lot of critical development that still happens in the baby's brain, adapting to the extrauterine life, feeding and having that whole feeding mechanism kicking in, and so that mom don't struggle with that. So unfortunately, medicalized system and doing also inductions, that also then leads to early birth, and we want to prevent that. Of course, cesarean section and failed inductions and so on come with their own risks, but that's then more on the mom's side, but also for the baby. If we can keep the baby until the right time, then it means physiologically they can continue to develop. So the last thing to nicely develop is their lungs. So our premature babies often struggle with breathing problems. Sometimes it's just for 12 or 24 hours if it's a late preterm baby or even a full-term baby. But then the earlier they are, the less developed are the lungs. And then the baby can be on a ventilator for very long. They can receive oxygen for very long. And this can then cause blindness in the babies because they get toxicity from the oxygen. So the good thing that we want to do is then actually becoming a bad thing. And usually with all our premature babies, irrespective of when they are born, they struggle with tactile aversion. So feeding is usually the thing that most of them start to struggle with and continue to struggle with. So yes, environment plays a huge role in pregnancy, in birth, and then also how we care for them afterwards in the hospital and at home.
Yeah, you said a lot of things, Velma. Thank you. And thank you for also pointing out the medically induced prematurity that we do through scheduled inductions and scheduled Caesars, which is a reality that we see every day.
Mhm.
And moms do need to know about that. Like, I th thank you for pointing that one out. But even if you want to have, and how it should be, a whole natural birth, prematurity happen, and yes, there are things that
Mhm.
we can do to prevent it, but we also know there's a percentage that just happen, no matter how healthy you were. So ideally, we should all just be prepared that it can happen. Am I right? And how can we advise pregnant mothers to prepare themselves?
Margrethe, I think the nice part about this is information that's relevant to all mothers.
Yeah.
So it's especially good for premature mothers and premature babies, but it's also good for the development of full-term babies. Because we need to remember that when a human is born, actually all humans are born premature because no human baby can get up and walk and feed themselves just after birth. So they need that care of a caregiver, hopefully the mum, for at least 3 months to up to a year before they can even start looking after themselves, which is different than mammals in the in the animal kingdom. So we need to keep in mind that especially that first 3 months after birth is seen as prematurity, and we need to care for babies. So any mom can then say, okay, I would like to have the following, or I should have the following at and after birth. The first important thing is to have delayed cord clamping. And this is important to discuss with your healthcare provider. So luckily, the more standard way of doing these days is to do delayed cord clamping, which means when the baby is born, we don't clamp the umbilical cord directly after birth. You wait for it to become white. So all the blood then pumps from the placenta to the baby. Now, this is critical because we've learned that actually a third of the baby's blood volume remains in the placenta. So if we cut immediately or within the first 30 seconds or so, well, before the cord is white, then it means that the baby is depleted of 30% of their blood volume. Now, blood volume have iron stores, which babies don't have when they are born. It has extra volume, so that's the baby's first resuscitation. So if the baby struggled at birth, that's going to be a first emergency treatment. Therefore, it also carries oxygen to the baby, and very important, it holds stem cells. So we don't always have to go and bank all the stem cells. Let's just give it to the baby at birth already, because that is how nature works. So that's an important thing that can be done, and it can also be done in a cesarean section theatre. And there, the doctors tend to be a little bit more quicker. So do ask before the time and ask for it to not be 30 seconds only, but at least 2 minutes. There's ways that we can work to have the baby with mum and not cut the cord, and the doctors can still go on with a medical procedure because remember, cesarean section is a big operation and it's medicalized. It's not physiological, it's not normal. Then, once the baby is born, it doesn't matter what the birth method was, the baby immediately need to go and skin to skin with the mother. And we need to keep the baby warm and dry. So if it's a cesarean section theater or whether it's a labor ward, it doesn't matter. Even if it's cool outside, if the baby is immediately dried and put with mum and covered with a warm blanket, then they form their own little cuddle nest. And mum is so beautifully made, she will immediately heat the baby up. So one of the things why babies often end up in ICU and struggle to transition from intrauterine to the external world is because they're cold. That's how simple it is. So we can keep the baby with mum, who's a better incubator than an artificial incubator. The mum will keep the baby's temperature normal, And if the baby's temperature is normal, they can automatically move to the breast, which then activate the breastfeeding. And if the baby is immediately breastfeeding and on skin to skin, that increases the baby's blood sugar levels so that the baby is much more awake and then go back to the breast. So I think those are three easy things that we should all do. It's delayed cord clamping, immediate skin to skin care, irrespective how small the baby is. Even very tiny babies should be on skin to skin, and then immediate breastfeeding with the mum. Those I think is our survival package
Mm.
in any birth situation.
Yeah, that's for any, no matter how big or small that baby is. Um,
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that is very understandable for term babies, but I don't think many people out there would actually connect that also with preterm babies. I think we really think then the more medical equipment and stuff gets put on this baby, the safer it is. Am I right?
Yes. You're quite right, and it's actually so not true. It's such a myth. And if you look at the WHO, the World Health Organization, they now also promoted, and they've done lovely videos to demonstrate it as well, immediate kangaroo mother care or skin to skin care. And that include our very tiny babies. If you put a baby in skin to skin care with mum, you can bag the baby there so the baby can immediately, if you need emergency care, it can be done on the mum. And the mum will keep the baby warm and safe and provide that boundaries that the baby had in the womb. All of that will calm the baby. The research also shows us that if you separate a mom and baby from each other, then the stress levels, the cortisol levels in both of them increase quite dramatically. And that can cause quite a lot of stress toxicity in the baby. Also in the mom, it influences then breastfeeding, it influences bonding. But in the baby, we need to remember that this either stress or good hormones is building the baby's brain. So whatever we give to the baby, that's the blueprint, that's the architecture for the rest of the life. So in other words, then if a baby is a little bit like I can look okay and be fine-ish, but when they become a toddler or a little bit older, then they may have problems with connecting or with their relationships because the pathway in the brain that's supposed to say touch is good or I feel safe with my mum have just never been built. So now the baby, if they need to, if you think about roads, you take the road that look better, that's more stable, that has less potholes. So if we separate mums and babies, then we create potholes in that relationship and regulation, self-regulation and co-regulation so that babies can calm themselves, that they can think and process better, that they can have problem solving skills and so on. So really what's happening at birth and in that first few months after birth is setting the scene for the rest of our lives. And if we can make that more physiological and not interfere and have this negative cascade, then we're going to have a much more population in society.
Sure. So actually, many people out there are affected by the start of life more than we realize.
Absolutely. And I think midwives, as healthcare professionals, are well suited to correct that or prevent that negative cascade. Unfortunately, the medical fraternity tends to go more medical because that's what they trained for. So that also gives us a warning of who do you choose as your birth healthcare provider. If if you have a problem and you need medical support, then yes, let's go into the medical area. But then also let's have doctors and gynecologists that are sensitive towards physiology and how we can keep it as normal as possible, even in the face of challenges. But if you don't have any problems, then a midwife would be a much better choice because your risk for intervening and cascading interventions would be much lower if you birth with a midwife, and also that's supported by research and by evidence. So I think mums need to ask that. And as healthcare professionals, we also need to make sure that we provide care for the right type of patient. So healthy patients should go to midwives. High-risk patients should go to gynecologists because that is where your skills lie and that's what's going to give the optimal birth outcome. In premature babies, they can usually not birth with a midwife, but then choose a facility where they are family friendly. So where all the staff, and that include your theatre staff, your maternity ward staff, your neonatal ICU staff, where all of them will put the family unit first, and then add the medical interventions to that. Because we've seen that if we take that technology away, as you say, and we put the parent in the place of it, then we don't need as much technology. For example, I've mentioned putting the baby in skin to skin. So a mother can within 15 minutes increase or decrease her body temperature according to what the baby need and therefore keep the baby in a stable temperature. Where an incubator take much longer to realize, oh, this baby is cold. Now it need to start heating up. Now it starts to warm the baby. So in that time, the baby used so much energy and now we need to give them additional glucose or additional food. The baby may stop breathing just because they're cold. And we could have prevented all of that just by using the mum as the incubator and not the incubator. So systemic change is definitely what we need in some areas as well.
You mentioned something about family-centered hospitals then, that you should be on the lookout for that. But in reality, Welma, how many of those hospitals do we have?
Not so many. So you would have to look for hospitals that really advocate for family-centered care. I know some of the bigger groups try and do that, but it often also depends on the staff working in that unit. So if you are pregnant, usually one of the areas that we include is that we expose mums to a neonatal ICU unit just to see how it looks. Because like you said, everybody need to prepare for it. You never know if you may be in need for it. But then have a look and see, are there parents in the unit? Are they sitting with their babies in skin to skin? And if they're not, then maybe you would like to choose a different facility where you know if you are not in control and the system need to support you, that that system is already in place. So don't feel stuck with a service provider because you feel, oh, this person is going to miss me and I have a relationship with them and whatever. Usually, they have so many patients. If you move somewhere else, they're not going to cry about it. So it's important that it's you as parents, that it's your experience. It happens, birth happens once or twice in life. Some people a bit more, but that's general what we have in South Africa. And it's a sacred event and it need to be a special event and according to your dream. So we can't force a birth plan and it's going to happen like this because we know birth is unpredictable. But if you're in that situation and unpredictable happens, then it's important that you are in an environment that will support you. So we have baby-friendly hospitals. If your hospital have a baby-friendly status, they would be more inclined to do the family-friendly things and support you in that. But also ask about that. But sometimes people say they are family-friendly, but that's not what's happening. So look, see what you see when you go and visit the facility beforehand. Are the parents there? Are they sitting with their babies? Do they have a baby nursery? Because that's a red light, then probably the babies is removed from the parents at some stage. Do they have a breast milk bank? Because that will also tell you that breastfeeding is really priority in that facility.
Sure, Velma, it makes me realize how many healthcare professionals we also need to reach with this message because it should actually be the norm if you realize
Yes.
how the impact of this kind of care,
Mm,
long-term impacts. I mean, as healthcare professionals, we just see them for such a short period, but the parents go home with these babies and have to deal with catching up on so much that could have been
mm,
prevented. So thank you for sharing that. And yeah, I know many healthcare professionals are listening also into this podcast.
yes.
Um, and stay at it. I know you do a lot of advocacy and training in that space. Um, so this year's theme for Prematurity Awareness Day is Give Preterm Babies a Strong Start for a Brighter Future. And I like to conclude with that is that it really depends on how we help prem babies in order to give them a brighter future. It's more than just a matter of survival. It's how we help these prem. And I think that is what is really busy happening out there in education. So much more awareness of how we treat these prem babies, right?
Absolutely. And for me, it's about quality of life.
Mm.
So, and it's like the definition of health from the WHO. Health is not the presence of illness. It is that optimal development or the optimal functioning in whichever situation you are. So yes, prematurity happens and we need to manage that. But within that negative situation, there's so many nice and positive things and ways that we can give a baby a healthy start. And as healthcare professionals and as parents, we can build babies' brains. We can lie that foundation, that first bricks to build the house. And I think that fits so nicely with the theme for the year. So if we start this story right, then I think the future will definitely be bright.
I love that. Thank you. Lastly, you've got a lot of resources, Velma, because I can imagine there's way more practical tips and advice for parents with a prem baby on how to help them. Tell us a little bit more about your work.
Sure, thank you so much. So yes, I've created the first South African website on prematurity many years ago, and it's titled Little Steps. So if you look at www.littlesteps.co.za, then there's a lot of this information and specific information on there as well. Apologies. On there, you can also look for training materials. So there's a course for parents, an online course, which they can take with all the information they need. We also partnered now with Baby Sense. The Baby Sense app then have also a premature parenting course. So the courses are a bit different. Premi Sense is a bit more video based, where the Little Steps one is a bit more of the tips and the things which is more text based with photos. And then there's also professional training, a webinar that parents, professionals can take. And then also there's individual contact available. So parents can contact me if they want some individual training or information. Or alternatively, and this is usually nice for grandparents and aunts and uncles that want to help and we don't know what to do. So there's also a book available on the website, Prematurity, Adjusting Your Dream. So that have everything about prematurity from diagnosis straight through to going home. So I want to believe that that's a very helpful resource for parents, but also for new professionals interested in the neonatal environment.
Wow, you've worked at this. Thank you so much for putting all of that out there. And as we've heard, 1 out of 10 in South Africa could be a prem baby. So this is so needed. So look that up, Little Steps. You can find all the resources there. Thank you, Velma, so much for having this conversation with me, and all the best of all the work you do.
Thank you, Margret. It was so nice being with you. And I really hope there's some tips that somebody out there can use. So let's put it together and make a brighter future for our country. Thank you so much. Have a lovely day.
Absolutely. Thanks, Wilma. Have a good day too. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you enjoyed this video, please share this with a friend who will benefit from this. And remember to subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you can be notified whenever we release new videos like this on our channel. We'd love to stay in touch and keep you updated with all our latest content and resources to equip and empower you. So if you're a midwife or any type of birth and baby worker, go to sensitivemidwifery.co.za/free gift. If you're a mom, visit sisterlillian.co.za/free gift for more training and resources. That way we can keep you up to date when we release new episodes like this, plus a few other bonuses. You can also find the links I just mentioned in the show notes. Remember, you're making a big difference because you are shaping the future of humankind. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to journeying with you.